Year 5. So welcome to your second English lesson this week. So yesterday we looked at adverbs of possibility and certainty, and today we're going to look at composing sentences using modal verbs. Now we've looked at modal verbs once before, and I know that it's been part of our spelling scheme from last time, so we're going to look at it in a little bit more detail today using our Tuesday book to help you. Now again, I've included the pictures needed for this lesson for today, but if you struggle to see the pictures, you might want to have a copy of the pictures of the book to hand just in case you need them. Okay, so we're going to have a look at this first picture, and I would like you to answer a question per picture. So the first one is, what do you think the frog is thinking in the first picture? So I'd like you to have a pause and think, what do you think that frog might be thinking about? Okay, in this picture, how does the first picture change in the second picture? So have a look at the first picture again and have a look at the clues you can see in the second picture of what do you think might have happened? What do you think is going to change in this picture? And the third picture, clear difference from the first one to the last one, but having a look from the second one to the third one, what might this frog now be feeling in this third picture? So look closely at his facial expressions from the first to the second to the third picture to help you answer that question. Okay, so what do you think the dog might do if he had caught the frog? So I'd like you to pause the video and have a think of some different scenarios and outcomes of what might have happened had the dog actually ended up catching the frog. Okay, so I've come up with some examples of my own, so we'll see if they match, whether you've got any different ones. So he might want to play with the frog. Sometimes if anyone has a dog or a cat at home, you know that once they get their hand on a frog or a little mouse, sometimes it's more fun to play with it than to kill it. Maybe he would carry it to his owner. Okay, he might have captured the frog and taken it over to his owner to look at. He might actually have then just been confused and not actually know what to do with the frog once he'd caught it. Or indeed, one of the common outcomes, if you can see this, if I move my face again, he might actually just want to eat the frog. Okay, so it could be any of those ones. If you've got some different ones, that's fantastic. Those are just some of the ideas that I came up with. So we are going to be looking at modal verbs. Okay, so we're going to be looking at verbs that express certainty, ability, and an obligation. Okay, so I'll explain what those mean as we go along. Okay, so we have certainty. So these are our modal verbs of may, might, would, shall, and will. So this is going to describe whether we will or won't do something. So very similar to the adverbs we looked at yesterday. We then have the ability of whether we can or can't or could or would be able to do those words. So we have can and could. We then have an obligation. So an obligation is where you have to do something or whether you are obliged, so are expected to do something. So we have the word must, should, and ought. Now, ought is one of those odd ones that we don't really hear about very often. So modal verbs are placed before the verb that they are modifying. So to modify something means to change it. So the idea of a modal verb, which is a modifying verb, changes the meaning of the verb. So I thought I might eat a snack. So this is telling us whether we're going to be eating that snack or not. You could see them from the windows. They should investigate this incident. Okay, so you can see that the blue words here, which are our modal verbs, are changing the meaning of how likely those verbs are going to take place. So when we are indicating degrees of certainty using our modal verbs, it's going to tell us whether something will or won't happen, or how likely it is that it's going to happen. So the frogs might be dangerous. So the frogs are dangerous, or the frogs will be dangerous. The frogs might be dangerous. The frogs could be dangerous. By changing the modal verb changes the meaning of the sentence. So the frogs will be dangerous. The frogs may be dangerous. So my question to you now is, pause the video. Which sentence is the most certain? Okay, so the frogs will be dangerous. So will is going to be one of our most certain verbs of whether it's going to happen or not. So when they will be dangerous, it's an absolute certainty that they will be dangerous. Indicating degrees of obligation, so whether there is an expectation to do something. So we should investigate, we ought to investigate, or we must investigate. Pause the video. Which sentence has the strongest degree of obligation? Okay, so we must investigate. So we should investigate means, well, it's something we should be doing, but it's not telling me whether I must do it. We ought to investigate. Well, that's making a decision that actually we think we should be doing it. We still don't have to do it. And when it says we must investigate, well, that's something we can't ignore. We have to do it. So we are obliged, so we are expected to investigate. Indicating ability using verbs, so the ability to be able to do something. So pigs might fly, pigs would fly, pigs can fly, pigs must fly. Pause the video. Which sentence indicates ability? Okay, so pigs can fly. Okay, if we have pigs must fly, that's telling us it's an obligation, so it's something the pigs are expected to do. But this is talking about the ability of whether the pigs can or can't do something. So here it would be pigs can fly. So modal verbs are useful when reporting when the facts are not certain. So this usually comes into play when we're talking about reported speech or reported facts. So the frogs may be looking for a new home, or the frogs might return. And then when we are showing when they are, we would change it to the pigs would cause more chaos. We will keep our windows shut next Tuesday. So that is changing it from when we are not certain about a fact, so using may and might, to when we're certain that they are going to happen, so would and will. So modal verbs are useful for including an opinion within a report. So they're more commonly found in informal piece reports, so an opinion-based report. So this is usually in direct speech quotations from people who are being interviewed. So this links a little bit back to our police reports that we wrote last week. So the frogs must be stopped. I should be safe to leave my washing out at night. The council ought to pick up all of the lily pads. So those are just some examples of when we were using it in reported speech or direct speech. So your task for this lesson is we're going to look at this picture. Now this is Rusty the dog, who was out on his walk when he had a little bit of fun with some of the flying frogs. So I would like you to consider the answers to these questions. So what different things might Rusty the dog go and do next? Okay, so he's being chased by one of these frogs. What might he do next? What might the frogs do next? What will Rusty's owner notice in the morning? What action do you think they might take? How could this have turned out differently? So how could the outcome of this story turned out differently based on the different things that the frogs and the dog might have done at the beginning of his adventure? And what advice would he give to Rusty and his owner going forward? Now, in order to answer those questions, what I would like you to do is I would like you to consider answering these questions using some of the modal verbs that we have looked at today. So here is a list of adverbs. I'm just going to move my beautiful face so we can see the last word again. So I would like you to compose your sentences using the modal verbs that you have learnt today in response to these questions. So may, might, would, shall, will, can, could, must, should, ought. So I would like to have a go at answering those questions, remembering to write full sentences. You can have additional sentences for each question, but you must include a modal verb. Now, for those of you that might need a challenge, I would like to have a go including a multi-clausal sentence as one of the answers to each of these questions, please. So pause the video and have a go, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have a go at our spelling test for yesterday. So if you want to have a quick recap of your words, go back and have a quick dig at them, then come back with a blank piece of paper and then we're going to test you on your spellings from yesterday. Okay, so we are going to have a look at our spelling test from yesterday's lesson. Okay, so you will need a piece of paper to hand, and I am going to read out some of our words and I want you to have a go at spelling them for me. So the first word is certainly. I will certainly be checking all of your work when you send it in to me this week. Certainly. Number 2, surely. Surely everybody in Year 5 has completed all of the work that Miss Humphrey has set for them this week. Surely. Number 3, definitely. Miss Humphrey will definitely have to sit and go through all of that amazing work that Year 5 has sent in this week. Definitely. You might start to see a theme. Number 4, perhaps. Perhaps some children have had a go at attempting the challenge questions Miss Humphrey has set this week. Perhaps. Number 5, possibly. I may possibly have to sit and go through and read all of the work that you've done and have a go at posting them on Twitter this week. Number 5, possibly. Number 6, maybe. Maybe someone has had a go at doing some hot seating this week at home. Maybe. Probably. I will probably have to spend all of my weekend doing extra planning for next week. Probably. Now, the challenge words. Now, I'm not going to put these in sentences because they're slightly bigger words, but see if you can have a go at spelling them. So the first one was plausibly, plausibly. Number 2, presumably, presumably. And number 3, feasibly, feasibly. Okay, right, let's see if you got them right. So let me put the spellings up on here for you to have a look at. So we have certainly, surely, definitely, perhaps, possibly, maybe, probably. And our challenge words, plausibly, presumably, and feasibly. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 words. So if you only had a go at the other words and you got 7 out of 7, well done. Any that you got incorrect, maybe have a go at and just check again. And if you did the additional 3 and got 10 out of 10, that is fantastic. So well done if you managed to get some of those words spelt correctly today. So your task is to have just completed the task from before, so there's no additional task for you to do at the end of this lesson. But tomorrow we are going to move on and have a look at another challenge where we are going to be looking at a sequel to our book, The Tuesday. Okay, so I will see you for that lesson tomorrow.